Hey everyone, we are going to make some Sanshoku Don. So Sanshoku Don is a Japanese dish. Sanshoku means three colors. Don is a rice bowl. So this is a three-color rice bowl. The colors being brown, yellow, and green. This is a childhood favorite of mine and something that virtually any kid in Japan will have eaten or will eat multiple times in a month. Real simple dish to make. It's delicious, hot. Cook for dinner, something like that. It's also really delicious in a bento box for lunch. So we're gonna start with some ground meat. I'm using ground beef right now, but you could just as easily use ground chicken, ground pork, ground turkey, any kind of ground meat that you want. You could use crumbled up firm tofu if you prefer to keep it vegetarian. But some ground meat, that's a half pound. I'm making enough for two people right now. That's a half pound of ground meat. 1.5 tablespoons of soy sauce, half a tablespoon of sake, and half a tablespoon of mirin, so sweet Japanese rice wine. I'm also going to go in there with a little bit of this is hondashi, so you can make dashi from scratch, but I'm using powdered dashi. So a little sprinkle of that, as well as just a couple tablespoons of water to get that dashi reconstituted. And then also about a teaspoon of sugar. All right, so sweet and savory, real classic Japanese flavors: soy sauce, dashi, and mirin. We're also going to add a little bit of ginger in here, but first I'm going to break up this meat just a touch. So see, I didn't really bother browning the meat or breaking it up before I added all these other ingredients. That's fine. We really want this to kind of break down into a very, very fine grind. So we want the sort of the grain size of the meat to be very fine at the end. So we're going to break it down as it simmers in this liquid, and then eventually all that liquid is going to simmer away and get dry, and then we're going to add a little bit of browning to the meat. All right, so ginger, and then to mince it, you could peel it. This is pretty young ginger though, so I'm not going to bother peeling it because the peels are really nice and soft and edible. We're just going to give it a nice sharp whack. Ready? Like that. And it essentially minces itself. Alright, see that? Nice, sharp whack. So a couple slices of ginger, minced. We're just going to keep breaking this up. So it's a very, very versatile dish. The real key to this is that you want those three colors. So the meat, any kind of meat, any kind of ground meat or non-animal based protein that you want to use. The eggs is going to be the second color, and then the third one is green. And for the greens, again, very, very versatile. Frequently, I make this with frozen peas because my kids love frozen peas, and frozen peas I always have in the freezer. But you could also do it with, say, blanched spinach. My mom used to do that with blanched spinach frequently. Frozen spinach. You could do it with snap peas. You could do it with asparagus. Any kind of green vegetable, and then it all gets placed on top of a bowl of rice. All right. So while that meat finishes cooking, I'm going to take my eggs. 2 eggs, 1 per serving. And to those eggs, we're going to add also some mirin, so sweet Japanese wine. Mirin and a pinch of salt. All right, we can see this meat is starting to, the moisture is mostly evaporated now. You can really tell, like just using your ears, you can hear when the meat starts to go from like a to a, and that's the difference between simmering and frying. And once it starts to get to that phase, that kind of sharper, crackly phase, that's when you're going to start to see a little bit of browning going on, and when most of your moisture has come off of there. All right, we are at like a full crackle now. Let me give it a little taste. Make sure that our seasoning's good. So very highly seasoned. With a lot of Japanese food, Chinese food that you're going to be serving with rice, the rice is completely unseasoned. You know, there's no salt at all in the rice. So the toppings are generally going to be very highly seasoned to compensate for that. So you really want a lot of flavor going on in here. You want it to taste like almost like it's too much seasoning. All right, we're going to reheat our wok. This, by the way, also works just fine in a skillet. You know, a non-stick skillet would work great for this. But I'm just going to wipe out my wok. Beat my eggs. Get them in there. We're just going to cook these eggs until they are pretty loosely set, you know, so we want them set but still moist. And eggs always cook a little more after they come out of the pan, so we want to get them out while they're still a little bit less than where we would want them. All right, and finally, the third element of our rice bowls. We get just a little bit of water in there and heat that up until it simmers. All right, and once our water's simmering, I got my frozen peas. Just gonna go right in there, get that freeze off of them. Basically, as soon as, you know, frozen peas have already been, all frozen vegetables have already been blanched once, so they're already cooked. You don't really need to cook them much more. All you want to do is make sure that they are not frozen in the center anymore. So by the time this comes back up to a really bare simmer, our peas are going to be basically done. Just going to give it a drain. All right, so I'm going to make two versions here. I'll make one the bowl version, and I'll make one the bento box version. This is probably the most common dish for a bento box in Japan. So a base of rice. This is Japanese short grain rice. I cook it at a ratio of 1.1 parts water to 1 part rice by volume in the rice cooker. I generally don't bother rinsing rice when I get it. It depends on the brand. You know, some brands have a sort of have quite a bit of sort of loose starch, and they'll get really sticky if you don't rinse them. This rice is fine. This is Nishiki brand, I think. Generally, I use a brand called Tamaki Gold, but all of them are Calrose rices, so grown in California, a hybrid Japanese short grain rice. Okay, so we're gonna get our rice in a bowl like that, and then we're gonna layer on our toppings. So, egg, and here you can go in strips or you can go in triangles. I think I'm gonna go in pie wedges here. My mom used to make this at home. She would use ground beef. You know, we lived in a sort of meat packing district back when 125th and Riverside used to be a meat packing area. There were all these butcher shops around there. My mom would use either, and they were all selling beef. So she would either use ground beef or she would use sliced beef, sort of like a cheesesteak style sliced beef, you know, but cooked in the same manner in this same sort of marinade and sauce. And then peas on the final side. And finally, grab some of these scallions here. I'm just going to give it a little garnish of scallions. If you have beni shoga, which is red pickled ginger, that's also a very sort of common topping for this. Just a little pinch of it in the center at the end, or you can make like a little flower out of a carrot if you're so inclined. But that's the basic dish. So Sanshoku Don, 3 color rice bowls. It is eggs, meat cooked with sake, shoyu, and mirin, and then any kind of green vegetable that you like, very simply blanched. Very classic Japanese dish, very, very popular with kids, popular with parents who are packing lunch for their kids, like in a bento box like this, and I think delicious. This, for me, it is like a taste of childhood. You know, I remember having this for lunch on Saturdays. I would go to Japanese school in the morning and music school in the afternoon because I had a real Japanese mom, and we'd come home and we'd eat this for lunch in the middle. And it's good as an adult too. Sanshoku Don, not just for kids anymore. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals. See you later. Hey everyone, thank you for watching the video. If you're going to be in Seattle this July 25th, you can catch Tasting Notes, which is my live stage show, multi-sensory stage show, involving the musicians of the Seattle Chamber Music Society, as well as some of Seattle's best chefs. There's going to be live demos, there'll be music, there'll be discussion, there'll be tasting. We're all going to have a good time, including pizza from Moto Pizza. So that's at Benaroya Hall, July 25th, 7 p.m. Tickets are available in the description below.